Right, so we're going to move on with CPA, and we're going to look at where those networks that you filled in a minute ago, where they actually came from and how you make them, and what that dotted line is all about and why there's a dotted line there. Okay, that's what we're doing. So, this is a precedence table, and this table tells you which activities depend on which other activities. Okay, so activity A can just start. So what we start with is a source node, and this is like a whistle for the job. So you blow this whistle and it's like, right, go. The only person that can actually go is A, because B is waiting for A to finish, C is waiting for A to finish, D is waiting for B to finish, etc., etc. But A can kick off, right? Now, when you're creating one of these, it's tempting to go like this and then finish. Now, actually, this whistle here, if we put that on, says A has finished. Now, for all we know, no one cares. Now, actually, we can see that B and C care when A is finished, but maybe they don't. So don't stick an event on, meaning A has finished, unless you know that someone cares that A is finished, okay? So we'll get rid of this event for a minute, pretend we don't know. So A is kicked off. Now, B and C depend on A. So when A has finished, B and C can go. Now D depends on B. So when B is finished, someone actually cares about that. D cares. Now E is finished. Sorry, B hasn't finished. E is also waiting for B to finish. So this whistle is B finishing, and E is also interested in that. F is also interested in that as well, so F can come out of here as well. Notice that C hasn't got an event on the end, because for all we know, no one cares about C finishing, apart from the project manager who wants the whole job to be done. Now G is depending on C and D. So C here and D here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sneaky thing and just swap my F and D here, so that D and C are closer together. Obviously, I could rewrite this to be a lot prettier, but it's coming together. So this event here that I've just drawn, this one, says that both C and D have just finished, and the person who cares about that is G. So now that this whistle's gone, G can kick off. And you notice like all of these bits, they're kind of floating in the air at the moment, because at the moment I don't know if anyone cares. It may only be the project manager who cares when everybody's finished, rather than a specific person waiting. So H, he's waiting for E to finish. So on the end of E, put a little whistle to say that E's finished, and then H can go. And then I is waiting for F, G and H. So I need a whistle for F, G and H to feed into. And then when that goes, running out of room, I can go. And then when I is finished, just about fit it on, that's the whistle for the end of the project. So this is the sync node here, and the sync node is the whistle to say everyone's done, and the source node is the whistle to say everyone's stopped. Okay? So I probably made it look frighteningly easy, but it's actually a bit of a skill to it. So have a play. Here's one for you.
Okay. Right. So let's do our source.
Brilliant, source node. So that's like go.
Right. And it's kicking off with A.
Yeah, he can go.
A is first. Not going to draw a node until I know someone depends on it. Okay, so B is also kicking off. So presumably that's another source.
Okay, so you've got a whistle going to say that A can start, and a different whistle to say that B can start.
Yes.
But actually, they are both just going to start when the project starts. So the source node is a whistle saying the project has started. Yeah? So there's only one of them, and it says anybody who doesn't depend on anything, you can go. Everybody else, you better wait for whatever you're depending on, but yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So B can go at the same time, yeah.
Right, so B can go.
Yeah.
And now I've got C,
Yeah.
but that depends on B's finish.
Yeah.
So I've got a whistle
Yeah.
on B finishing, and
Yeah.
then a strand, that's C,
Yeah.
is now active.
Yep.
D also cares that B is finished,
Yeah.
so D's got another strand.
Yep.
And E depends on A finishing, so
Yeah.
I'm going to whistle here,
Yep.
and E is somewhere in space.
Yep.
Now F depends on E and D finishing, so I'm going to switch
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
make that D and make that
Yeah,
C,
exactly.
squiggle that round, so it stops there.
Yep.
And that becomes my F.
Yep.
And G also depends on D and E
Yep.
finishing, so there's another strand for G.
Yep.
And then H wants C and F to be finished. Right, so I'm going to swap that to an F.
Yep.
That
Good
G.
plan.
That one can stop somewhere there.
Yep.
And that will become H.
Yep.
Now that has to link with the sync node, so I'll make this one my
Yep, that's it.
sync.
Perfect, and that's the thing. So when that whistle goes, everybody's done, project's over.
Cool.
Excellent. Okay, one more easy one,
Right.
and then you get a hard one.
Okay, so source. I've got an activity A,
Yep.
and I've got an activity B,
Yeah.
and I've got an activity C.
Yep.
D depends on A finishing.
Yep.
E depends on A finishing.
Yep.
F depends on B.
Perfect.
And G depends on C.
Yep.
Now, H depends on D. So, there.
Perfect.
And I depends on E, F, G. So E, F, G.
Yep.
Source, I, and now both feed into
Perfect.
Sweet.
Obvious major talent for drawing networks. Okay, now this one is where it gets more complicated, and this is where we need a dummy.
Okay.
Hence the dummy. Right? Now, what the dummy has seen here is a problem. Within this network, we're going to have E kicking off when B is finished. So we've got B somewhere, whistle to say B is finished, off goes E. Right? Now, F is waiting for B to finish, but it's also waiting for C to finish. Here's C. There's C. Okay? So here is the whistle to say that C is finished. Now, the problem with this is that F can now go after C, totally disregarding B, when actually it needs B to finish. So if I try and change it and go, right, well, what I'll do is I'll feed C into this whistle as well. Now this whistle goes off when B and C are finished, so that's great. Now F is happy because F goes when B and C are done, but now E is waiting for C to finish. So E wants to go when B is finished. It doesn't want to hang around waiting for C to finish, which F has to do.
Yeah.
So we need to pull this open somehow to allow E to only wait for B, whereas C waits for both. No, F waits for B and C. Okay. So we use what's called a dummy, which you saw previously. You saw it had length 0. So what we do is we have B, and we have a whistle that says B is finished, and off goes E, no waiting around. This whistle information, B is finished, gets fed down a line to this guy. This guy blows his whistle when all of the inputs are input, basically. So this guy is waiting for C to finish, and he's also waiting to be told that B has finished. So this is the whistle B is finished. That in no time at all gets sent down here. So because this whistle has still got two inputs, the C input and this input, which is this input, which is B. So using this dummy here, we can create a situation where F can't go until C and B are finished. That's what that whistle is. But E can go as soon as B is finished. So that's what that dummy is for. So we're going to need a dummy, at least one dummy, when we're drawing this network to deal with this situation. Okay, challenge accepted?
Accepted and extended. Right, so source. I've got A, B, and I've got C. D depends on A. E depends on B. F depends on B and C. So if F depends on B and C. Right, so
Yep, good.
F can go here, but only once the information from here has been fed through the dummy. What can I label this
You
as?
don't need to label it at all, you just stick a dummy.
Okay, so that's that one. And then G goes from B and D, so I whack the whistle there and put the dummy again.
Yep, yep, perfect,
Into there.
Yep.
And then H goes from G, so that's here.
Yep.
And I depends on E, F, and H. So and then that's the stick.
What about R?
Oh, okay.
R, yeah, that's it.
I see.
Perfect. Okay, right. Now this one is a lot harder to see what the problem is from the table, but there is still a problem. We are going to need a dummy, but for a completely different reason. So when we're drawing this one, we're going to end up with E and F coming into a event. No, as you can see, no one cares about E and F. Oh, I've done it the wrong way around, sorry. Wrong way around. E and F depend on B and C, right? And so B and C are coming in here, probably via the use of a dummy as well, because we've got D depending only on B, but we've got E depending on B and C. But anyway, let's look at this situation here. We've got B and C, we've got E and F caring about B and C finishing, and you can't go until they're finished. And then no one cares about E and F finishing. But if you look down here, no one cares. So E and F go into the sink, because the only person that goes is project manager at the end. Now, this situation is not allowed.
Why?
Because, according to reasons I don't understand, computer programmers don't label activities. So we label activities. This is E, this is F, right? They don't do that. What they do is they label this event 7 and this event 8.
Yeah.
And then activity E is defined to be the activity between 7 and 8. And so we can't define F to also be the singular activity between 7 and 8.
Yeah.
So what we need is to create a dummy in here, and we allow F to go here, not there, not directly, and then we stick a dummy between those two. So what it does is it allows us to then call this, not that we would, but computer programmers, they call that event 9. So they would refer to F as the activity between 7 and 9, and they would refer to E as the activity between 7 and 8.
So you can't have more than one strand running into the sink.
Yeah, you can have lots of strands going into the sink. What you can't have is an event, another event, and then two activities going from one event to the other event with nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
So what you need is, it's called unique representation of E and F in terms of their end events. Unique. So if this is event 10 and this is event 11, at the moment activity F is activity 10 to 11, and activity E is also 10 to 11, and that's not unique. Whereas if we get rid of this, put another event in, which is event 12, and put E here, now E is the one between 10 and 12, and F is the one between 10 and 11, and then just put a dummy across to say that this one goes when F is finished and E is finished, but E is measured by the other one. So that's the only other use for a dummy,
Okay.
which you're going to need here.
Okay. So source.
Yeah.
Ready. And C depends on A. And D depends on B.
Yeah.
And E depends on B and C. So, right. But also F, right, okay. So E does, and so F. F. And they're all going to link into the sync, but that's done.
Yeah, except for, look what you've got E and F dependent on.
E and F and R. Right.
Yeah, you had E and F dependent on C and D.
Yeah.
And actually E and F are dependent on B and C.
Right.
Both
now
of
I've got
them
to
are.
go backwards.
Yeah.
Right, hang on. So D depends on B.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's okay.
Yeah.
Now E depends on B and C, right?
Yeah.
So I need a dummy.
Yeah, exactly.
Linking from.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And D at the moment has no finisher, so I'm going to ignore that.
Yeah.
So that's
better. Yeah.
And now F
Also depends on B and C.
B and C. I've
So
lost my
where's
flow
your-
now. Right, so F would be.
That's it. Yeah,
there we go.
that's your B and C whistle.
Right,
Yeah.
cool. And then they would feed into the sync. They're all coming from unique except for E and F.
Yeah.
So I can create. Does it matter? It doesn't matter which one I've done.
No, it doesn't matter which one.
So that can be on sync.
Yeah.
And that dummy one can be. For E.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Excellent.
cool. Yeah, when you mess up doing the middle.
Yeah,
Very hard
yeah.
to get.
And when there's loads and loads of activities, it can get really messy. And you know, like at the beginning where you're going, actually, I'll make that C and that D so that yeah, it can get quite messy.
Yeah.
Final challenge?
Okay. So, right. Okay, so source activity A, B, C, and A depends on.
I haven't actually done this one, so I don't know what's going to happen.
So
Okay.
D depends on A.
Yeah.
So E goes there. E depends on A, so that's.
Yeah.
F depends on C. And G depends on B, C, D. B, C. Right, let's sort that around.
Okay, yeah.
So B. Hang on, I'm losing my flow. B, C, T. B. Right, I need mine. Right, I need a dummy.
Yep.
There we go. B, C, D, and that can go on to G.
Yeah.
And H depends on G. And I depends on E and G. Where is E? Right. E and G. So I'm going to need. So I'm going to need dummy G.
Yep.
J depends on F. So J now 1, 2, 3, they link so they can all go into sync.
Perfect. That's not right.
She hasn't finished here. It says it relies on D, but here G finishes.
What?
That relies on G finishing.
Oh,
Here G hasn't finished.
yeah, she's right. Yeah, she's right.
Help me out.
Hang on. I
Yeah.
depends on E and G.
Yeah.
And at the moment, you've got it dependent on E,
and
this
D.
dummy, but this dummy's loads. This dummy is reflecting this ending, and this ending is D and B, and this dummy, which is C. So at the moment, you've got I following E and D and B and C.
So it needs to come off here?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need it like that.
And then it's good. Fine.
And now I is coming off of this input and this input. This one is E finishing, and the dummy is this going, and this going is G finishing. So now I is only dependent on E and G.
Fantastic.
Thank you. So, typical exam question, why the dummies needed. So you need to memorise these sentences to explain why the dummies are needed, right? So, this dummy here in the top, okay, this dummy is needed because C depends on B and A. So it's waiting for B and A to finish, which we've represented through the dummy.
Yeah.
Whereas D depends only, and only is the important word, only on A.
Yeah.
So D wants to kick off once A is finished, but C is waiting for both A and B to finish. So that's why that dummy is needed. This dummy at the bottom is needed to allow unique representation of, in this case, A and B in terms of their end events. So these are sentences to memorise and just plonk the right letters in, but standard example. Done.
Brilliant.